quick moment. So welcome everyone. Do we have anyone new?
I don't believe anyone new. I think to note, we do have Mayor Esther Mannheimer, who attended the last meeting, but the ethics paperwork is in and is now an official member. So,
Fantastic.
Welcome, Mayor Mannheimer.
Thank you. Good job in getting that paperwork. I know how much it is to get that completed, but thank you. Do we, that being said, are we missing anyone? I'll just make a public announcement that we have annual ethics requirements, and I would encourage everyone to complete that.
Yes, I have sent out an email, I believe, either yesterday or the day before to the people that have missed it. If you did not receive an email from me in the last 2 days, then you are all set. So we're down to a small enough number that I could individually, instead of sending it to the whole group, which I appreciate everybody's patience when I was sending it to the whole group, but for the most part,
is it a handful or a handful?
6 or 7.
Okay, please get your paperwork in.
But I want to thank everybody who has done their paperwork. I appreciate not having to chase everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Asha.
Thank you. Next, I'll move to the ethics statement. In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter involved. Do we have any conflicts? Oh, thank you. Public comment. Do we have any public comment? This is like the 5th or 6th. No, we didn't have public comment last meeting. It was a pleasant public comment. Okay. Next is the approval of agenda and consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda. I have a first. Do I have a second? I have a second. Fantastic. Anna, you're up.
Asheville Kimroni.
Aye.
Asheville Esther Mannheimer.
Aye.
Black Mountain Archie Portillard.
Aye.
UC Division 14 Chuck McGrady.
Aye.
County Amanda Edwards.
Aye.
Flat Rock Ann Coletta.
Aye.
Fletcher Jim Players.
Aye.
Haywood County Kevin Ensley.
Aye.
Henderson County Rebecca McCall.
Aye.
Hendersonville Jennifer Hensley.
Aye.
Laurel Park George Banta.
Aye.
Maggie Valley Mike Evelyn.
Aye.
Montreat Tom Widmer.
Aye.
Urban Transit Larry Harris.
Aye.
Waynesville Anthony Sutton.
Aye.
Weaverville Catherine Cordell. And Woodson Jim McAllister.
Aye. 17. Very good. 17. That's good. Okay. Next is business. This is the fiscal year 2025 Unified Plan Work Program and self-certification.
Right. Before we jump into that too much, I did just want to note that we did get a request from a member of the public from Hendersonville to assist them in getting to today's meeting. Our staff did provide assistance, so maybe they'll be able to show up. But I do want to emphasize that if there are members of the public who need assistance in either joining our meetings virtually or attending our meetings, that's something we can definitely help with. Making our meetings accessible is something that's a priority for us. Also, as Asha said, do your ethics. We're not trying to bug you. We're trying to keep you out of trouble. I think a few years ago, I went to one of our board members' houses and helped them with their paperwork. I'm not going to do that again.
I'll do that.
Someone from staff might be able to help. But seriously, we want to keep you all we want to keep you all out of trouble. So any assistance that's needed, please let us know. Anyway, moving into the business. The final FY 2025 Unified Planning Work Program. Just as a reminder, the Unified Planning Work Program, or the UPWP, or as our board chair calls it, the UPWIP, that essentially serves as the budget for the MPO and metropolitan planning activities within our planning area. This both shows what the MPO is planning on doing over FY 2025. But beyond that, it is also the special studies that are being funded through the MPO or are considered regionally significant. It is also the regional or the metropolitan planning funds that come to this region through FTA. Those are known, rolls right off the tongue, Section 5303 Metropolitan Planning Funds. So the activities that are being planned with the use of those funds are also reflected in that document. To note, those funds don't come to the MPO, those go to the city of Asheville. The MPO has a responsibility of making a designated recipient for transit funds in the region. In the past, our board has designated the city of Asheville to be the recipient of those funds, including the 5303 Metropolitan Planning Funds. But also there's funding for 5307, that is the Urban Transit Formula Funds. The vast majority of those funds are utilized for things like operations and capital expenses related to transit systems in the urban area. But if you read through the 100-odd pages of the circular, there's a little note that you can use these funds for planning. And so there's not currently those funds being used right now, but I have been notified that a future amendment will be requested in this UPWP to add those funds for planning. But all in all, this is a federally required document, and it's basically, if there's federal funds being used for planning in a metropolitan area, it needs to be in this document. And it also keeps our lights on, so that's important too. Some of the major changes between FY24 and FY25, the big thing is an increase in local dues. The MPO's overall budget will be changing from $570,009 to $700,000. That is a reflection of a lot of the general cost increases, a number of cost of living increases that have been applied, as well as the increase to some of the technology that we utilize. So if you haven't utilized our interactive TIP, we got to think of a better name for it because it's awesome. It lets you know all of the projects that are going on in the region, their schedule, how much money is being applied to those projects. It's a really, really great tool. We want to keep it, so that's one of the things increasing the dues for the MPO. And just to note there, as a reminder, the MPO's budget is 80% federal funds, 20% local funds. And so we are not increasing how much our local governments pay in by $130,000. It's 20% of that. 26%, thank you. A few other things in general, we are increasing the amount of funding allotted towards special study management and coordination. We have a lot of studies on the books this go around. And so a lot of those are projects that have been on the books for a while and are just getting started. And then we have a number of significant studies that are also getting underway. Just to note, Safe Streets for All Action Plan, we had the kickoff meeting last week or one of these weeks, some week recently. We're also kicking off our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's a 25-year transportation plan for the region. And our socioeconomic projections, that's getting started. The Woodson-Weaverville Greenway study is out for procurement. And we have a number of studies being managed by our local governments, 2 in Asheville and 1 in Black Mountain that are already underway. So a lot of special studies and a lot of staff oversight and management that's required. Also, we put a major focus on the 2050 MTP. Again, that's the 25-year plan. P7.0, that's the current round of prioritization and special studies management. But where we'll have less of a focus this fiscal year is on data collection and management. We have tried our best to spare this board from the many, many meetings we've had on collecting all of your local government's land use data and translating that into one uniform code. We can present if you guys really want it. It is kind of fascinating, but there's been a lot of data work over the last 3 or 4 years to get our model ready. We anticipate that work kind of tapering off for 1 year. And then we've got to start the next one. So all in all, the document in your packet shows the full Unified Planning work program. We did add, by popular demand, a list of common acronyms. You asked for folks, you asked for stuff, folks, and we'll deliver. That's not all the acronyms, but hopefully that's something that's handy. The general overview of UCWP, the funding, that shows the local match for each of our dues-paying members. Just to note, we have fewer dues-paying members than we have total members at the MPO. And the percent is, or how much you pay is calculated based on the percent of population. Also we have listed some of the key initiatives. Again, the 25-year transportation plan, the Safe Streets for All regional plan, the continuing with the Hellbender Regional Trail Network. We are planning another summit for later this fall. The travel demand model, which if you want to get really wonky and look at future forecasts, that's your ticket. The Memorandum of Understanding updates, we anticipate that stretching into FY25. This round of prioritization and Western North Carolina passenger rail. We have been attending a number of meetings on passenger rail and sending updates, but there's likely to be more and more discussion on this front. But I won't go through all of this. Hopefully you've gotten a chance to look through what we are planning for FY25. It is quite a lot. Again, kind of this is the section on the MPO work tasks. We have the special studies listed that are being funded through the MPO or managed by the MPO. Also, the transit planning tasks are listed in this table that's provided from the city of Asheville about tasks that they are planning on utilizing the Metropolitan Planning Funds for in FY25. And then this beautiful chart that is required. But another thing that's important about this process and adopting the UCWP is we also include the self-certification. That is another federal requirement, and the self-certification is essentially saying that in this metropolitan planning area, we are following the federal requirements for metropolitan planning. So included in your packet is a checklist of the various metropolitan planning requirements that was provided through FHWA and our responses on how we are following the metropolitan planning process. But all in all, What we are looking for today is the approval of the final FY25 UPWP, along with the self-certification of the metropolitan planning process. Are there any questions or comments?
I hope that it is a fascinating read, actually. So you had a chance if you read it. Do we need two separate motions or just one motion?
I think one motion with
One motion. So moved. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Kim?
I believe so.
Kim, did you? Thank you. So we'll do a roll call.
Astro Kimroni,
Aye.
Astro Esther Mannheimer,
Aye.
Black Mountain Archie Portiller,
Aye.
DOT Division 14 Chuck McGrady,
Aye.
Buncombe County Amanda Edwards,
Aye.
Rock Ann Coletta,
Aye.
Usher Jim Player,
Aye.
Haywood County Kevin Ensley,
Aye.
Henderson County Rebecca McCall,
Aye.
Hendersonville Jennifer Hensley,
Aye.
Laurel Park George Banta,
Aye.
Maggie Valley Mike Evelyn,
Aye.
Swan Tree Tom Widmer, Urban Transit Larry Harris,
Aye.
Waynesville Anthony Sutton,
Aye.
Weaverville Catherine Cordell, and Woodfin Jim McAllister.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Larry. Mick? I'm sorry?
I just wanted to make sure you could hear me. Catherine.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we sure can. Thank you.
And sweet guitars in the background, Catherine. Tom, you have your hand raised?
I did. I had a hard time unmuting, but I was an aye on that.
Thank you, Perfect. Then I'll move you to the call. Interestingly enough, that ends our business section for today. So we will now move to informational items. P7.0 regional, P7 survey, regional survey. Oh my gosh. We've been saying 7.0 for so long.
Well, there's never a point 1 or point 2, so yeah, I think we'll have to train ourselves to drop the point 0 at some point. But I do want to give a quick intro on this. So P7.0, that is the general process in North Carolina. I just did it again. That's the general prioritization process in North Carolina for determining what projects are going to be funded. It's not all of the funding, but it is a large portion of it. This is the process that essentially has determined projects on I-26, on NC 191, Sweeten Creek Road, Ross Avenue, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the major transportation projects that we see in our region are funded through this process. And just to note, all modes compete. So there are transit projects, bike ped, aviation and rail projects in this process as well. In general, what I kind of wanted to introduce with is a little bit of a wet blanket. We know with this round of prioritization, there were some funding tiers that would not have funding available. It's our understanding that what funding tiers will have funding available, it's likely to be quite limited. I'm looking at Steve to keep me out of trouble.
Nice way to say it.
I do want to kind of preface that, we are hoping that there will be funding available in this round in some of the funding tiers, but the chances, our understanding of getting very large projects, some of which have been submitted, the chances of getting a large project funded in this round is likely to be slim. Keep me out of trouble, Steve. But regardless, this round of prioritization is moving forward, and we've had a little bit of internal debate about a public survey on this front, but I think our general take is if there's a round of prioritization moving forward and we're being asked to provide priorities, we're going to do it right. And we're going to engage the public, and we're going to make sure that the public is being made aware as best we can of this process, and that they are having a voice in terms of what priorities are being put forward by our board. And I will stop being a wet blanket for this item and hand it off to Logan, who has developed in my opinion, a fantastic survey for our region.
And just so you know, we had just approved $50,000 for public outreach.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thanks, Tristan. He gave a pretty thorough intro, so I'm just going to do a demo of the survey really quick and then talk about how we are planning on promoting it. So this will be the landing page of the survey. It's going to give a quick introduction to the SPOT process and what SPOT 7, P7 means. We try to make this as digestible as possible to the general public, since it is kind of a higher level, lots of lingo and acronyms involved with it. And then, you can see the purpose of the survey, and if you want more information, there's a link to more information. The only required question on this page is going to be zip code, and that's just going to help us with presenting the information and seeing where we're getting the most responses from. We basically divided projects by county and by mode. So say you're from Haywood County, you can choose that county. And you'll be presented with a map where projects are, they're also divided by mode. Did I say that already? Yeah. So for this first page, it's highway and roads projects, which, in the planning process, I think they're all called highways, but for the general public, we label it highways and roads. Color-coded by improvement type, and then each project has a letter of the alphabet corresponding to it, where you can scroll down and choose 1 to 5 how you feel about it, and each of those numbers are defined right here. There's also a terminology key, so you can understand what access management means or modernization or whatever. And none of these are required. So if, someone only wants to put input on one project because it's near where they live or it's on their daily commute or whatever, they can do that without having to go through the entire survey. There's an area where you can leave comments if they want to provide any comment, go into more detail. And then you can see on the next page, it's Haywood County Bike Ped, which looks pretty similar to the first one, same setup. And next page is transit. These aren't mapped, but it's divided by mode. And then at the end of the Haywood County section, you can choose to provide input on a different county, or you can finish providing input, where you have a final page with just some helpful information, demographic information, and you can add your email to our interested citizens list. So, yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of the survey. Yeah.
Is it available in Espanol?
Yes.
Good.
We have a Spanish version being translated right now, and we're hoping, I think the survey will go live next week. I think it'll be ready at that point. And it'll be live until the 3rd week of May-ish and presented in June to you guys, the TCC, other committees. And we're trying to get creative with promoting it. So we have social media advertisements going out. We have flyers and disposable coasters with QR codes being made. And we're going to distribute those around the region to coffee shops, breweries, community centers, stuff like that, trying to get as many people and demographics as we can. Let me see. Our email list, digital advertising, and then we are hoping to lean on the TCC and board members to amplify it in their respective jurisdictions as well. You guys have a stronger connection to your respective jurisdictions than we might do at the regional level. So any amplification would be greatly appreciated because we want the most responses as possible.
We'd love to be able to put that on each town's website.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do want to just emphasize that it really, really does make a difference. I will note, this is something, we put in our orientation, that part of being part of the MPO is you hear what's going on a regional level, and you take that back to your communities. You also take what you're hearing in your communities and bring it to the regional level. But our member governments, when they push it out, we can tell. I've said this a number of times, I'll say it again, and the Village of Flat Rock newsletter must be the most popular newsletter in the state. Every time we've done this survey and that newsletter comes out, we get hundreds of responses. And we see the same thing. When we see our member governments blast out the surveys, we see responses, and going back to the zip code, it usually lines up roughly with that government.
How soon can we reach out to Logan with, for example, our newsletter is scheduled to go out in June? Will you be ready by then? When is the town hall in June? Town of Woodton.
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Will it be ready by June for newsletters?
It'll be live next week. In June, we're hoping to present the results and have that all.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get in touch with you about vacation.
Can you do a favor and send out the link to all of us?
Yes, I'm
So
sure.
that we can make sure it gets on our town's website?
Yeah, no problem. You guys will be notified, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
And mention in your meetings, as people watch those live streams as well, especially for them.
Right. But in the past, this has been one of the bigger initiatives we've undertaken. So in the last round where there was funding, and we held a survey, we had more than 5,000 responses from around the region, and that's more responses than I believe the DOT received from across the state. So I think that speaks both to the assistance from our member governments and our efforts at outreach. I will say the posters were not overly effective last time, but we're going to try it again. Hopefully, if nothing else, it just helps get the word out. Yeah, this is one of the things we really want to engage the public with and hear what the priorities are from our communities.
Good job on that one. I know that's not the funnest project put together.
I think this is the best looking survey we've had. So
It's very simplified. I think people could do it in just a couple of minutes. I find people lose interest in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I know I exit out the survey.
Yeah, we do have a couple of tools available, and I think our emphasis was on, we've noticed a lot of people have 1 or 2 projects in mind. This tool enables that. Some of the other tools we have are great for like people to give a ton of detailed information. I think this has that option, but this also lets people just talk about what they care about and get out if that's what they want. So, thank you again, well done.
Next is the French Broad River APO certification review.
Okay, and with that, I will, well, before handing it off to Suzette, this is something that's required of MPOs every 4 years. So we recently received our final certification review from Suzette and the FHWA team. So here to present is from the Bay Area, it looks like. Is Suzette. Suzette, please take it away.
Thank you. I think I'd rather you see the Bay Area than like the background of me inside my car. Right after this, I head to the Winston-Salem meeting, so I drove here early so that I could get here in time to just sit and present. So Bay Area background is much better. But yeah, thank you all for allowing me to present the results of the certification review. It's every 4 years. This is something that we do with each of our TMAs. Throughout the entire 4 years, though, we work continuously with the MPOs, helping them with process improvements, providing stewardship and oversight, and that kind of also culminates into assisting us in our certification review. So I'll talk about the process of a certification review, and then after that, I'll lead to the findings of the certification review. So next, please. Okay, so this is a joint effort from FHWA and FTA. Your FTA, I guess the area that's assigned to you for FTA is Region 4, and they're in Atlanta, Georgia, and then you have us at FHWA North Carolina Division Office. So these are the folks who are all part of this certification review process. And next, okay. So the main purpose of a cert review is to formalize the continual oversight and day-to-day evaluation of the planning process, and then to document those findings. It's done every 4 years, like I said, jointly with FHW and FTA for areas that have a population of over 200,000, as defined as a TMA. So we review to ensure that you are meeting the federal requirements for both FHWA, which is 23 USC 134, and FTA 49 USC 5303. Have you been doing all the work to meet these requirements? This is what this review helps us to determine. Next. So we start off with doing, and I think it'll mention earlier, later, but we do a review, a formal review, and at the end of the formal review, we have a report, which is what you guys have seen. It takes us about 60 days to summarize it and put it into a report, and then your chair receives a letter, and it lets him know, as well as the MPO, what the final result is. Is the MPO certified? Are you certified but you have some corrective actions to do? Or are you certified but only for certain areas, and you can get funding to continue the planning process only for those areas until you fix those issues? Okay, next. Okay, so the certification review, as I said, during the 4 years prior, we're continuously working with the MPOs. And then during the time, 6 months before it's time for the official certification review, we give a notice to the MPO, letting them know that you're next. They either panic or they take it in stride, but it's mostly panic, and then we're just like, calm them down. Like, it's okay. Certifications are not a big deal. Especially, you know, if we've been working with you throughout the whole entire time, it shouldn't be a big deal. But in that, we tell you like, hey, we're going to be doing a desk review. So in this desk review, we're looking at all of your planning products, and we're just doing a comprehensive review of those things to see if, you know, they are meeting requirements. And then after that, we're going to do a public involvement. We host the meeting, and it was done on December 12th for you all. And it helps us determine if the public feels that they have had adequate participation in the planning process. So not just like going to the public involved, you know, public meetings for the MTP or things like that, but throughout the entire planning process, do they feel like they have been engaged in and been allowed to participate? So following that, and we use their comments to help us with our determination as well. And then following that, we have an on-site review, and that's where we meet with the MPO staff, board members, TCC, the, you know, NCDOT, and any other partners like, you know, Land of Sky and any others who we feel could be critical to discussing some of these topics. And then, so that took place on December 13th, and it was a whole day review. Previously, that used to take 2 to 3 days, but we are now focusing our reviews on risk. It's a risk-based review. So what are some of the areas that, you know, we feel like, we need to focus on. So, and then after that, we document the results and we give our findings. And so our finding for the French Broad River MPO is that you are certified. So congratulations. Next, so
Certified, not viable.
you're certified for planning. That's all I got. So these were some of the topics that we went over. There are a lot more topics out there related to transportation planning, but these are the ones that we found were critical for us to talk about with the MPO. So talking about the boundaries, especially because there was a new census talking about how the structure works, the UPWP, the TIP, and a host of other topics that you can see right here. Next. Okay, so there are 3 types of findings we could have. You have commendations, you have recommendations, and you have corrective actions. So with commendations, we're looking for things that the MPO has done that have been innovative, well thought out, this is amazing above and beyond what is typical for normal, for regular day-to-day planning. And then it also is going to be something that, could be put into practice. This is something that you can share with your other MPOs as something that could benefit them. So next. The French Broad MPO received 4 commendations. The first one is commending the MPO and its efforts for meeting with each of its jurisdictions that were impacted by the changes in the urbanized area due to the census. There were changes in definitions and hop skips, all of that. And the MPO did a great job with meeting with each of its members to determine how can we move forward based on this. So good job to the MPO. The second is the MPO is commended for developing its interactive tip. It's useful for both the policy board as well as the public. We couldn't say enough about how amazing this program is. We love the visual aspects of it, as well as the ability for you to just hone in on a project and then just only be able to comment on that project. So congratulations for all your work on that. The third one is for the MPO's work in engaging nonprofits to more effectively do outreach to the community, especially for areas that haven't been historically engaged. And the fourth is more specific. The MPO is committed for completing its congestion management plan biennial reports for fiscal year 21 and 23. Okay, next. So the next type of finding is recommendation. Those are issued when the MPO has planning activities that they do meet the regulations, but they're either dated or they could use some improvement. And then we'll also provide you dates when these recommendations should be resolved. So if you looked at the report, the first few pages, there's a table and it lists all the commendations and recommendations, and next to it is the date in which these recommendations to be resolved by. Usually they're by your next certification review or by your next MTP. So next. So for the French Broad MPO, you received 9 recommendations. I'm sorry, yeah, you received 9 recommendations. They do seem like a lot, but these recommendations are actually helpful for you as you go through your MTP process that's coming up right around the corner. And this is just going to maximize you're giving your MTP the best possibilities of being really successful. And I also want to say that even though it's a lot, some of these things the MPO has already started working on even before we even finished the report. So the MPO has been very, very active in making these corrections. So the first one, I'm sorry? Is there a question? I'm so sorry. I can't hear.
No, you're good. You can keep going.
Okay, already. So the first recommendation is that the MPO is recommended to add an official of public transportation to its policy board, and as well as to add representation from freight, housing, and other transportation modes to the TCC. So the regulations require TMAs to have representatives from public transit on their board, and then to have other modes on that board if they are available. If not, then you would put others representation into the TCC. Housing is also a new one from Bill /IIJA. That's another recommendation from the new act. So the second is for the MPO to update its UPWP to include discussions on the planning priorities facing the MPA, and also include discussions of the process in developing the UPWP. So number 1 and number 2, the MPO has already been working to fulfill these recommendations. They started working on it during the subcommittees for representation, as well as the UPWP that you saw today has basically met this recommendation for number 2. So the third one is that the MPO is recommended to coordinate with NCDOT and the City of Asheville to confirm eligibility requirements for project activities associated with 5303, 5304, and 5305. And then the fourth is also for the MPO to coordinate with the state DOT and the City of Asheville to develop strategies for sections 5307. And these are recommendations that came about from FTA, and the MPO has already started working with the city and the state, as well as FTA, to fulfill this recommendation. Okay, next ones, please. So the fifth one is that the MPO is recommended to utilize its MTP agency contact list that's been developed by NCDOT as the basis for consultation with resource agencies. So as you're developing your MTP, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to resource agencies, and NCDOT does have a list. So you just want to make sure that you have, you're not missing anything as you're developing your prioritization of projects or your recommendations for projects. It's kind of similar to 6. For 6, it's recommended that the MPO develop a section in its MTP in concert with applicable federal, state, wildlife, and regulatory agencies to ensure potential mitigation strategies on the proposed program of projects for their possible environmental impacts, including historic sites, noise, endangered species, buffers, etc. So this one is in particular is about reaching out to those environmental agencies and ensuring that the projects that you have won't have any impacts, or how can you minimize, or maybe you can find alternative routes to still fulfill those same needs, especially if you're impacting any of these environmental identifiers, let's say. So number 7 is that it's recommended for the MPO to ensure that its method of determining EJ communities, communities of concerns, does not overlook EJ populations with less than 3 indicators. So within the MTP, it talked about how if you have 3 or more indicators of, then okay, this is a community of concern. But just because you have less, it doesn't mean that the projects don't impact them. So it's about looking into it. Even if there is any amount of EJ population, you should be looking into those impacts. The next one is it's recommended that in addition to current and planned projects, the MPO develop an overlay map that also includes past projects to ensure that cumulative impacts are considered. So that one's fairly explanatory. So, you just make sure that the projects that you're putting on in the past and in the future, you just want to make sure that there's a balance of benefits and burdens over these projects. Number 9, and the last one, is to update the regional ITS architecture / strategic deployment plan in coordination with NCDOT. That's a more specific one related to the CMP and ITS. And next. So there, as you can see, there are no corrective actions for the French Broad MPO. And as I said, you guys are officially certified that you have met the planning process and until the next 4 years from now. And that's it.
Are there any questions for Suzette?
Kim has her hand raised.
Kim?
Thank you so much for this presentation, and it certainly added to my understanding about what this means for our French Broad River MPO. My name is Kim Roney, and I serve on the Asheville City Council. One of the points that you brought up was EJ populations, and I was wondering if you looked at that in general for our region, or if you looked at some of our specific neighborhoods and census tract areas. For example, it's my understanding that our Burton Street community that will be impacted by the I-26 connector is designated as an EJ community.
Okay, so when we do the certification review, we are looking at specifically within the MTP how EJ analysis is being done. And then if there are any other plans that we are a part of, we also look to see how, particularly with public involvement, how there's been outreach to EJ communities. If you're going specifically about a project, this is after project selection. So, sometimes FHWA is involved, and those are part of, generally those are CEs. It can be further, but either way, those are specific to those projects. So, but they're still required to go through EJ analysis for those individual projects. So also, there's no clear definition of what's considered benefits and burdens. So you have to come up with a clear, whenever you're developing your NEPA document, you come up with a clear explanation of how you came up with it. And then you determine if you are having an environmental impact. And then if you are, how can you mitigate or how can you even avoid? So those are kind of like the steps. And sometimes when you go through that, you'll find that some of the EJ populations, like let's say for relocation, they actually do want to be relocated. Like, yeah, please move us somewhere else. So sometimes it's actually a good thing to have those impacts. It can be a benefit for them. So it's always very important to engage with EJ communities. You can't just, make assumptions. So I hope that helped to answer your question.
It did a bit. What are the kinds of funding that MPOs like ours are available to apply for when we're working with EJ communities? And is there available funding that you're aware of that you might be able to send to our group for distribution?
I can look into it. We have in our office, we do have someone who is specific for EJ and civil rights, so I can have her look. But also with any type of project that you get funded, and you want to do public involvement for EJ, that's generally covered, especially if you're going in from PE all the way to construction. Yeah.
Okay, so I was specifically thinking of not just for doing outreach, but we often reach out in our communities and we see needs, and the needs are expressed, but then we don't have the maybe enough state or federal funding to address the needs. And so our local resources get tapped out. And so we're not able to meet all the needs that our community has. So if you come across any resources that our community might be available to apply for, I would love to see those, and I'm sure our staff would as well.
Sure, yeah, I can look into that.
Yeah, and I'll just note, Suzette did supply us with a fantastic memo on some of the flexibilities for our funding with public engagement. So thank you, Suzette. I'll also note that we included equity, or improving our transportation networks, improving equity for our transportation network as an MVP goal in 2020. And part of the way that projects were prioritized were based on some of the equity criteria that were developed. And the last thing I'll note is with one of the recommendations on the past projects that Suzette brought up, I'll note, first of all, yes, as Suzette said, the recommendations to us are absolute gold. It is fantastic getting a clear idea on areas where we should focus on improvement and ways we can improve. We have developed a database with, I believe, 740 past projects stretching back to the 90s. Our GIS guy regrets not retiring sooner when I gave him that list to map out. But that is definitely one of the recommendations that we've jumped on and should improve our processes moving forward.
Thank you. Any other questions for Suzette? I want to thank you, Suzette, because I know that day was a long day at the NPO, and I want to thank you and everyone that attended and participated. And I have to say I'm very proud of our staff, and I think that we have one of the best staffs in the state, actually. And it was very refreshing to hear your feedback.
I'll return the favor. I want to thank Chairman Sutton for coming after work to the certification review, as well as a number of local government staff. So I think we have representatives from Henderson County, Haywood County, Mountain Project, the City of Asheville, Buncombe County, and Madison County who attended the meetings as well.
And the
so
RPO,
thank you.
too.
The RPO.
And the RPO. Sorry, Vicki, yes. Thank you, Vicki, for attending. Vicki and I tried not to look too hard at the boundaries, just a little bit. So thanks to everyone who helped out through this review.
It really shows how everyone's very passionate about transportation in the region. And thank you. Thank you, Suzette.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move to electric vehicle update with Ian.
All right. So
There's been lots of activity lately with EV in the area.
there are definitely some things happening. Sorry, 1 second, folks. There we go. I'll just give a quick intro because I'm on an intro kick. We asked Ian Bailey from the Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition to kind of give a presentation on what's going on in the world of electric vehicles right now. We're just looking at some quick numbers in terms of the overall number of vehicles registered in our region. We are seeing that there's more and more what we pulled was electric vehicles and hybrid plug-ins. So essentially vehicles that may have a need for more electric vehicle infrastructure. We have seen numbers, I believe, quintuple over the last 5 years. So now more than 1% of the registered vehicles in the 5-county region are EVs or plug-in hybrids. You might not be too excited about 1% with an increasing trend line. However, when you look into the percent of vehicles and the increase of vehicles in our region, basically our region has increased by about 17,000 new registered vehicles over the last 5 years. And of that increase, 23% of that is EVs and plug-in hybrids. So this is something that I think is becoming increasingly relevant in the transportation realm, and there is no one better at Land to Sky to talk about it than Ian. So Ian, Please take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and please bear with me. Pollen has decided to beat me up and take my lunch money this week. So I am wired on coffee and Sudafed right now, so I can breathe well enough to speak. So I'm Ian Bailey. I'm the co-director of the Land-of-Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition, and we are a fuel-agnostic alternative fuels information provider in Western North Carolina. We're a project of the Land-of-Sky Regional Council and are designated by the U.S. Department of Energy for our activities in promotion of alternative fuels, education, and outreach. So I'm going to start with kind of a history lesson for everybody while we talk about these newfangled electric cars that we've been hearing so much about in the news lately. And we're going to start in the 1700s when we started to see steam cars coming onto the transportation scene. Steam was considered a tried and true energy source, long, reliable, used for trains and factories. Sounds kind of familiar for where we're at with some other fuels currently. In 1841, an electric locomotive was built in the United States that pulled 6 tons, a mile and a half at 4 miles per hour. That locomotive was destroyed by steam locomotive operators that were worried for their jobs before it ever got any further. In 1859, rechargeable automotive batteries became a thing, which led to 1890, a fellow from Des Moines, Iowa, built a 6-passenger electric vehicle that was capable of going 14 miles an hour, which was pretty quick compared to horses and buggies of the day, and had about 50 miles of estimated range before the batteries needed to be recharged. That also led into, by 1896, a company out of Philadelphia campaigned the first commercial electric vehicle. It was called the Electrobat. Between 1900 and 1906, the electric vehicle company in New York City operated over 600 electric cabs and built the first battery swapping station so they could pull them in, pull the cab off the vehicle, swap battery packs out, and get them right back on the road again. That particular project led to one of the investor partners became Exide Battery Corporation, which is one of the biggest battery manufacturers in the world. And the other one was a manufacturing partner called Pope that developed an automotive brand and was the first automobile manufacturer to build 1,000 units of the same vehicle. Shortly after that, Henry Ford figured out a way to cut 60% of the production cost of a motor vehicle with an internal combustion car, and the rest is history from there on how internal combustion came to be. It's roughly 30% the cost of every other vehicle on the market. The Model T was poised to take over. Next slide, please. So adoption of electric vehicles. 2023 was a record year for the sale of EVs in the United States. We more than doubled the number of EVs that were on the road nationwide. 1.2 million EVs sold during the 2023 calendar year. And that represents a couple important statistics. One is that 7.6% of the new vehicle sales in 2023 were electric or plug-in hybrid cars. It's long in the automotive industry been considered that 5% is where you start to cross over from early adopters to mainstream adoption. So seeing cresting 5% and moving to 7.6 is actually a pretty significant number in the automotive industry. North Carolina has been in the top 20 states nationwide for EV registrations per capita. And as Tristan mentioned, we've seen a 24% growth rate in registrations in 5 years and 5 times as many EV registrations in 2023 as there were in 2018 in our 5-county region. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about EV charging in case some of y'all aren't very familiar with it. So EVs can be recharged from a variety of electrical sources. Electricity is relatively inexpensive, widely available, and can be dispensed at home without the use of any special equipment. Level 1 charging uses a standard 120-volt wall outlet and can add 3 to 5 miles of range to a vehicle per hour. Level 1 charging is best for times when a car is parked for many hours at a time, like overnight at home or during the workday. Level 2 charging requires a 240-volt circuit, like a dryer or electric range would have, and can provide between 10 and 40 miles of range per hour, depending on the hardware and the vehicle. Level 2 charging is ideal for times when a vehicle is parked for 30 minutes or more, like while shopping, enjoying leisure activities, sporting events, and at home or at work. DC fast charging is ideal for long-distance travel and quick top-ups. It can provide 80% of range in as little as 15 minutes, depending on the charger in the vehicle. DC fast charging works well in places where folks might stop for a bathroom break, a meal, or a short shopping trip. DC fast charging also tends to be the most expensive form of charging, requiring special equipment and electric utility support. On average, I pay $15 to $18 for 200 miles of range of DC fast charging, which balances out to a little over 30 miles per gallon at $3 a gallon. That same amount of range, I can fill level 1 or level 2 at my house for about $7. Next slide. So where we are. Western North Carolina is at an interesting and challenging point in transportation electrification. Our region is rich in natural beauty, clean air, and outdoor recreation opportunities. With tourism as a heavy component of our region's income, we find ourselves considerably understocked when it comes to infrastructure to support our residents and visitors to the area. Lines at DC fast chargers and occupied level 2 chargers are becoming a common occurrence across the region. So here are some statistics about our current inventory of DC fast chargers. In our region, we have 11 locations of DC fast chargers with a combined total of 22 plugs that are available to all makes and models of EVs that are on the road now. And there's a little caveat for that because not all of those work on the Nissan Leaf, and Teslas use an adapter to access those. And that means we can charge simultaneously 22 EVs in our region at one time, which makes that registration number look pretty large. We have 5 Tesla Supercharger locations with a combined total of 40 plugs. Those, until this month, were only available to Tesla vehicles. They have started opening that up to other manufacturers. We've seen Ford and Rivian come online this month and expect GM hopefully within the next few weeks. Those are also going to require adapters that owners will have to buy or the manufacturers will have to provide. And that rollout is happening across the country currently. We have one Rivian DC fast charger that has one plug. For level 2 infrastructure, we have less than 100 publicly available stations with a combined total of less than 200 plugs. A large quantity of the listed sites, when you look online, are at hotels and bed and breakfasts in the area. Next slide.
What's out front here?
Level 2.
Okay, thank you.
Sam's Club has a DC fast.
Electrify America.
Yeah, so now this slide's about where we're going, and there's a lot of words up there, so I'm going to try to say most of them. There are 2 current infrastructure funding programs in the United States and available in North Carolina. The first one is called NEVI, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, and the second one is the CFI, Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program, which is not just for electric, it also includes some other fuels. NEVI is being handled through the state DOT. It has $109 million available over the course of 5 years to do rollouts for corridor-based charging along identified alternative fuel corridors and community-based charging for areas that are not located along those corridors. So this map up here is the recently released corridor map from the DOT. So NEVI dictates that a corridor charging locations must be within 50 miles of each other and contain at least 4 plugs capable of 150 kilowatts simultaneously. NCDOT recently released its Round 1 NEVI cluster locations, and the plan leaves a lot to be desired in our region. The westernmost location would be exit 73 in Oldport, which leaves a gap from there to the state line with Tennessee along I-40 with no compliant NEVI chargers. The Electrify America station at Sam's Club here in Asheville is not within a mile of the 40 corridor, which is one of the requirements of that program. There are no identified clusters along I-26 because the Sam's Club charger is eligible on I-26 and it is less than 50 miles in either direction of the state lines there. The good news is that there will be future rollouts that will focus on redundancy and congestion reduction for corridor stations, as well as the community plan, which we don't know the details about yet, but will come out after this initial corridor rollout. The bad news is that round one sites are expected to take 2 to 3 years to complete, which puts our infrastructure in the West even farther down the timeline. CFI, the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program, is administered by Federal Highways and is a nationwide competitive funding opportunity. It offers both corridor and community-based opportunities and will be opened up yearly for 5 years and has $2.5 billion in funds available. The Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition helped to create an application for round one in 2023 that was submitted by NCDOT. The proposal would have supplied high-speed DC fast-charging infrastructure to 5 communities west of Asheville had it been funded. Unfortunately, the application was not successful, and we are awaiting a debrief from Federal Highways about the selection process to inform us for future rounds. Round 2 is expected in the coming months, and we hope to be able to submit at least one application, either through Land to Sky or through one of our partners for that opportunity. Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition is also working with partners across the region to develop charging projects along major corridors as well as in communities with the goal of applying for the opportunities that will become available in the coming years. Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition is also working with municipalities and business owners to encourage infrastructure planning and installation in locations where construction is happening in order to prepare these sites for the growing number of EVs on our roads. Next slide. So what can we do? Planning and zoning, ensuring that land use and development ordinances encourage EV charging infrastructure and or supporting infrastructure for future charging installation. Land use ordinances can inadvertently hinder adoption of new technologies and can reduce residents' abilities to make choices that suit their needs and wants. Long-range planning, including an in-depth look at your community's needs for electrification during strategic and long-term planning processes, can help to inform language that prepares communities for the increase in EV adoption that we're already seeing. Garner legislative support, letting your elected officials and representatives know that our communities are experiencing a rapid growth in EV ownership and that we need support for continued investment in infrastructure. Educate. We can educate ourselves and our communities about electric transportation and how it impacts us. We can address issues and concerns as well as opportunities and benefits. Plan, considering how your community is impacted by transportation and making a plan to help the transition to new technologies. Coordinating with businesses, residents, and tourism entities to be prepared for funding opportunities. Experience. Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition hosts many events and car shows across our region throughout the year. Please come out and take a ride or a test drive in an EV. Ask questions and get information to help yourself and your community to be better informed about electrification and transportation. And last, contact. Please contact us at Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition for resources and support to help you plan for your community's future in transportation. Next slide. The transportation industry is constantly evolving, from steam-powered electric cars to gasoline and diesel, back to electric, and even potentially onto hydrogen. We are all along for the ride, and it's up to us to understand and plan for how this evolution changes the way we move. Our residents deserve an equal opportunity to choose the transportation solutions that work for them, and our communities deserve investments that will help to propel us into the future. If anyone has any questions or wants any additional information, please reach out to myself or Sarah at Land to Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition for help. Next slide.
Outstanding, thank you.
And there's my contact information. I would be glad to take any questions if anybody's got them, and certainly feel free to email me if you want more information or need any help or resources.
Thank you for all you're doing. I'm interested to see what comes back from the debrief of why they didn't like the Georgia corridor.
We all are.
Yes. I will say from that, the town of Waynesville has installed a fast charger at one of our parking lots in downtown Waynesville now. And Silva just opened up 5 more Tesla chargers.
Tesla superchargers, yeah.
Tesla superchargers. I did talk to Tesla a couple of weeks ago, and they're planning on rolling out all of the chargers to all vehicles in our region by the end of the year.
You have had this in your report, but what's the cost of a fast charger?
A fast charger is probably around $100,000.
They start around 100,000. You're into about 250,000 for NEVI compliant chargers currently. So most installations wind up looking like about $1 million for NEVI compliant. It's 4 plugs at 150 kilowatts.
Yes.
That number again, $250,000?
Yeah.
That's 150 kilowatt charge. As you probably know, I have an electric American-made vehicle. And I try to use level 2 as much as possible. I have a level 2 in charge at my home, and I try to use it when I travel, try to find hotels and stuff that have it. But I do utilize the fast chargers when I'm traveling to Charlotte or other places like that.
Is there any pressure on organizations? For example, we just spent $1 gazillion opening these 2 new rest stops on I-26. Was any thought given during that planning process?
Heartburn there.
I'm just curious, we're spending another $1 gazillion on a new airport.
Right. Ideally, you would put fast chargers at rest areas, because that kind of makes sense,
I think so.
But that's illegal.
Right. We've had a similar conversation with the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation and a few MPOs along the Blue Ridge Parkway, because it's my understanding that the Parkway employees are being required to shift to electric vehicles, but similarly, they aren't allowed to provide charging infrastructure.
We're forcing our police force to go to, you're like, well, where are we going to charge them? I figure it out. You know, that's just what we're faced with.
So yeah, a lot of the emphasis is on some of the grants being made available, especially NEVI. NEVI is recurring funding, and this board has taken action in the past to request that 2374, basically from Waynesville to Georgia, be included as a NEVI corridor. We were unsuccessful in that request, but also, as Ian mentioned, private developments with apartments popping up. Making sure that there's access to charging in a single-family home. Ian, stop me if I say something dumb. A single-family home, I see it all over my neighborhood. There's people, they have a plug, they charge their car. In apartments and multifamily, it's considerably more difficult.
About 35% of the working adult population in the United States does not live in a place that they can charge at home.
Is there a model that you're aware of that anybody's tried to build on creating charging as a business? Is the same model as a laundromat? And on the corner is there a business model that you've ever seen on that?
Charge points.
Yeah, can you make money?
Actually, I just read a study that fast chargers have reached past that peak of 50%, so they are starting to make money.
What we're seeing a lot of recently, especially with NEVI funding, is adoption from existing fuel suppliers, like Love's Travel Stops, Flying J. Pilot Flying J has partnered with GM and has applied for some NEVI locations.
We're getting 5 new Sheets. They'd be the logical.
Sheets is also doing charging. Buc-ee's is doing charging, so a lot of fuel providers.
And Shell, believe it or not, Shell is starting to roll out.
Yeah, and one of the first ones that we got in the western part of the state of the more modern installations was the local market on Jonathan Creek, outside Maggie Valley, and that was a partnership with them and the utility to put in 2 chargers on Volkswagen funding, because they see the market of, you stop there to charge your car, and if you're there for 15 or 30 minutes, you're going to come over and get a hot dog from their station.
Let me ask you a question. There was either your 60 Minutes or an NBC special in the last couple of months. They did a survey, and they said that at any moment in time, almost 50% of all chargers are broken or unusable. Is that a crazy statistic?
It's not outlandish. It could be exaggerated, but it's not outlandish. There's a lot of aging infrastructure. The 3 that are out here are new. The 3 that were out there before were not working. They were old and quit working.
The Ingles near my house, more often than not, has an out-of-order sign on it. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Ingalls and someone has made it a priority to put level 2 chargers at all of their locations.
Are they that fragile?
No.
Or subject to vandalism?
Subject to vandalism some. I mean, typically those chargers last about 5 years without maintenance, especially the more simple level 2 chargers. And they're not terribly expensive for most level 2 chargers. So we see like Ingalls installs a fairly inexpensive charger, probably cost them $1,000-ish for that charger plus their installation costs. And it's just a matter of washing that back out. They're not charging anything for you to plug in at that charger. They're hoping you're gonna come in and buy a gallon of milk, because if you spend a whole hour in that store and you buy a gallon of milk, you paid for well more than the amount of energy your car took off of that charger in that
They're
time.
paying about 11 cents a kilowatt hour. I can go down in the weeds with this. But I will plug this. If you purchase a charger and you live in Duke Energy area, covered by Duke Energy will give you back about $1,000 for installation. And you can also apply for federal with your tax return and get almost $2,000 back. So if you install one at your home, you'll get about $3,000 in rebate. And it will cost you not that much.
Unless you need a panel upgrade.
Yes.
I know the town of Mills River just did a solar upgrade on the park and town hall there, and added 2 stations with 4 chargers, free to the public, because it runs completely off that solar system. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out to the town of Mills River to see what that costs.
I wonder, Woodford's the only town, we have our legal counsel investigating, would requiring all new developments of more than 4 units to have chargers, would that be called by the courts an unreasonable condition? We don't know.
I think it depends on how it's written, and I am not a planner, so I can defer to our planners for that, but I do know that Charlotte's UDO contains language that requires EV chargers and or EV ready spaces in given quantities based on parking lot size. And certainly, if any of the local governments want to know more, I'm willing to get with our planning team and put something together and try to find some information. Everybody just reach out to me, shoot me an email. I'm building a list, so Kayla and I can talk about it. But I know for a fact, my counterpart in Charlotte did some work in Wilmington on their UDO, and she's in Charlotte now, and she actually sent me their UDO after my last presentation, so I had something to look at. And they do anything over 10 parking spaces is required to have EV capable and EV ready spaces.
I'll quit talking. We've got a great example in Woodfin. We've got a 500-unit what was been considered a luxury apartment building. And they are now having a tenant turnover issue and trouble attracting new tenants because they have no charging stations and no room to put them. And that owner of that project is trying to figure out what to do.
It's very expensive to put them in after construction. Even if you just run raceways while you're doing construction, you save thousands of dollars in cost to install chargers later. And so that's kind of the difference between like EV capable and EV ready is having the design lay out the groundwork to be able to install that. And that's something that I've learned from Ingalls. When they do their gas station upfits on their locations, before they repave that parking lot, they're burying raceways for all of the future improvements that they think they want to make. So every one of those that gets a gas station, they're planning on putting some charging in, and they're burying that raceway because they don't want to dig that parking lot up and have to repave it, and they don't want the liability of a partial repave. But you're looking at the difference between potentially a few $1,000s and tens of thousands of dollars to install raceway before you finish the project or after you've turned the key and people don't want to stay there because they can't charge their cars.
Interesting.
Fascinating. You said something about solar. Electrify America, not to put a plug for any corporation, but they tout that theirs is 100% renewable energy, and what they can't purchase that is solar, they offset it by purchasing solar. So So there's some misconceptions out there about what energy is actually going to electric vehicles. Well, a large majority of it is renewable energy and not coal or oil.
And we're still subsidizing coal and oil over $600 billion a year in the United States.
Yeah.
So this is subsidizing cigarette, tobacco growth as well.
We'll send out this presentation to everyone.
Yeah, we'll make it available online. And, yeah, I mean, just to note, I think there are kind of two different sides on this, I don't even want to call it a debate, but, with considerations. And one is on the infrastructure side. Thanks, Larry. You know, our region has a lot, the entire country has a lot of infrastructure needs to be able to prepare for this shift. And on the other side of it is more of the policy side of DOTs and maintaining roads and building road projects is still very much reliant on gasoline tax, fuel tax. You know, trying to prepare the future for making sure that we can maintain DOT finances as best we can.
I will tell you though, when I went to pay my registration this time, there is a fee for electric vehicles to compensate for the fuel tax.
And it is more than the amount of gas tax an
Exactly.
average driver in a reasonably economical vehicle would pay.
Right, so we're being actually kind of penalized.
Overtaxed a smidge.
Yeah, we're being paid more than our fair share of tax for the road.
And there's a politic about taxing for sure. Like, in reality, the equitable version of that is paying by the mile, paying by vehicle weight and the mile, some crossover of that. Nobody wants to campaign on adding tax to anybody, even if you're eliminating another tax. So I think it looks to have been very unpopular nationwide to do more than a study looking at how much revenue you might bring in. As vehicles have become more efficient in the last 20 years, that gas tax has not actually been a very good version of feeding the DOT's income for those projects anyway. Not paying a balance in anybody's cars, hardly.
Right, but I think there's going to be additional policy considerations in this realm because while the fees have increased for EV users, as you guys have pointed out, it's generally a flat fee. And that's something where I'll just say there's people like my mom who put on a whopping 200 miles per year on their car. Things like that are not the most equitable. But all in all, I mean, that is something that I know is being debated at the Board of Transportation and other levels.
And in the state legislature.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? I know I've dominated the conversation. Are there any other questions? Thank you for all your work. Looking forward to getting more charging stations. Yeah. Next, we'll move to regular updates. Division 13.
This is Hannah. I'm here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I was looking. What? Thank you.
So Tristan has keeps a list from us of all of our active construction projects as well as our projects in development, which is basically just a printout of the STIP in a different format. I'll start with construction because that's what we're looking at. So again, this is a comprehensive list of all active construction in Buncombe and Madison, but I will touch on some of our interstate stuff, and if there's anything else that you guys have questions about, just let me know. So wanted to give an update on I-4700, which is the I-26 widening in Buncombe. Just remind everyone of the paving goals the contractor has this year. The goal is to have eastbound traffic on the new alignment from Long Shoals to the south end of the project, so Airport Road, by the end of this summer, and then westbound traffic on its permanent alignment all the way through the project by the end of this calendar year, the end of this construction season. Work on the new interchange at Pratt and Whitney has started. It's been mostly clearing and grubbing and erosion control for a couple of months now, but they have started work on the ramps for the I-26 westbound alignment. So quite a bit of progress lately for the interchange. We also have some interstate maintenance coming up on I-40 between mile marker 45 and 50. Now that we're getting closer to those spring temperatures, they're anticipating starting the paving the first week of April. Also wanted to touch on the I-40 exit 53A. Again, we're installing a right turn lane on that ramp and an acceleration lane on US 74A. And through the winter, it was mostly drainage installation. They're finalizing that now, so they're just now getting to the widening and the subgrade preparations. And they're currently on schedule to finish late this summer for that project. So I'm looking forward to that one being done, certainly. As far as projects in development, nothing really new to report. I will say for the connector procurement of the design build team is still underway. We're trying to award that now by May. The bid opening in February, we had 3 bids that came in well over 10% of the engineer's estimate, so we weren't able to award. But they're working through procurement still, and again, we're hoping to award in May now. Touch on the other 2513 segments. So the AAAB portion, again, that's I-40 between 26 and the Smoky Park Highway. That let is going to be moved to July. Currently it's in April, it's moving to July. And then the AC section, which is 240, is still scheduled to let in November. So we're actively buying right away and moving utilities for those sections, but a little further out from letting them to construction. Again, anything on here that says not funded is currently being reevaluated in P7, but I like to include it in the list just in case you're like, whatever happened to, you know, whatever project that's been unfunded in the recent years of STIP reprogramming. But this is a full list, so let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
It's Catherine from Weaverville. And could you just give me a rough figure? And if you can't, you can just say that's not something I can tell you. But how much is it currently costing to build like a 2-lane bridge in Madison County to DOT standards?
I can't really give you a figure because it depends on the design of the bridge, what type of bridge it is, how long it is, how high it is, etc.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you the reason that I'm asking, and then I'll talk to you offline.
Okay.
We've never had bridges in Weaverville that we've been responsible for. And so with this big new development that's coming in on Gill Branch, it's a possibility that it'll have bridges in it. And they're going to ask Weaverville to take over those roads, and it would be the road and the bridge. And we've never done anything like that. So I told council that I would talk to somebody at the DOT just to get, you know, some rough numbers of, you know, what we might be looking at.
I recommend you get with the, sorry, who's somebody speaking?
Catherine, this is Anthony as well, but I'll let Hannah talk before I answer.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I'd recommend getting with your district engineer, Chris Medlin, who's probably involved in whatever development you're talking about anyways for driveway access and traffic impact analysis. And then he can help, he can work with our bridge maintenance folks to get you some figures as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Catherine, the town of Winkle has many bridges, as you can imagine. And we just replaced a couple of bridges and 2-lane bridges in the neighborhood. I can talk to you offline about that as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Any other questions for him? Thank you. Now Division 14.
All right. See what comes up first here. All right, construction. Keep in mind that the resurfacing on I-40 in the Clyde-Canton area will start back this spring as minor things that have to be done, but it will still affect traffic. The bridges on I-40, there's 2 being constructed right now near Jonathan Creek. Those are scheduled to be finished middle of next year, probably before then. And there's 2 more bridges at Fines Creek Road. There's also a Pigeon River crossing. That's 2 bridges there. those have not started construction, and they won't until the other two are finished. So you're aware of that. The Russ Avenue project, our board chair has told me that he's received angry calls, so construction has started. Yeah. And then the two bridges there on 19, US 23, 74, and 19, that area, those have not started yet, even though the contract has been awarded. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. In Haywood County, most of the other projects you see there are complete in Haywood County. Just the final things remain. I-26 project, nothing nearly as exciting as Division 13, as I always say, because we don't have a Blue Ridge Parkway Bridge. It's the same stuff that you've been seeing for a while. If they complete concrete paving, then they'll shift traffic. Just be aware of that. The I-26 bridge over Green River, traffic has shifted to the center. It has a completion date at the end of this year. That'll probably be pushed out. Highland Lake Road, progress is being made, but there are many issues there that the contractor is running into. Yeah, I think that's it for construction, unless somebody has questions. Excuse me. Project development side of things, same projects you've been seeing for a while. Some of the bridges, the schedule has moved out. Really not much to report on project development. 191, the last time we met, I was thrilled to say that the schedule moved up. Now the schedule's moved back out. That happened the day after our meeting. So, yeah, I've learned my lesson there. I'm not going to, anytime something moves up, I'm just going to ignore it. At least let me do the cycles, right? Right. Or maybe until it's lit. Anyway, as we've been saying for a while, you know, and Tristan touched on this, there are some budget issues, so don't be surprised when some of these schedules move out some.
I want to thank NCDOT for over-communicating everything on West Avenue.
Over-communicating?
That is not possible, but they are doing a fantastic job at communicating.
Good.
And I appreciate that. Next is NCDOT, I'm sorry, any questions? Next is NCDOT Integration Mobility Division update.
And I don't believe we have, I don't think we have anyone on the call today. Just a couple things to note. We are working with the Integrated Mobility Division on a regional transit plan. We need to rename it, not to confuse that with the SBO's regional transit plan that was done a couple of years ago. But this is working with our region, Land of Sky RPO, and Foothills RPO, to kind of look at broader regional transit issues. And so that is a big effort that I think will be continuing through 2024. And also, as it was earlier in your agenda, the multimodal planning grants are available, or open. Our region has done a fantastic job of going after multimodal planning grants. We have 2 active ones right now. I think Woodfin is kicking off their bike ped plan. Mars Hill is doing the same. There is a whole lot that has happened or is happening in that realm in our region, and Black Mountain is applying for one this go-round. So, yeah.
And I have to apologize to Daniel. I skipped transportation planning branch.
Oh,
I skipped right over you, Daniel. I'm so
But
sorry.
you said that right after you said NCDOT was oversharing, so I just thought it was compensatory.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I will keep things real simple though. There's one traffic forecast going on in the area, and that is for Sweeting Creek Road. I received it and reviewed it and sent back comments in my typical passive-aggressive fashion. So we'll see how the firm reacts. Other than that, some general updates. The planning conference, statewide planning conference is next month. It is very fun. I encourage you all to attend. Second, you may recall a few months ago, I mentioned that, or I was just throwing out some extra grant opportunities that I had discovered. There's one from the CDC for active communities, active mobile lifestyles, which can be used for sidewalks and maybe bicycle facilities. I just wanted to bring that back up because it came up in an office discussion, and I hear that the Hickory MPO, or the city of Hickory, I don't know which, has applied and gotten some of that grant money. So it is something we have a little bit of experience with, and if you're interested, you can reach out to them. And the TCC asked me to send out those grant opportunities again, so I'm going to dig them up from the archives and shoot those back out to you. I didn't mention it at the RPO meeting this morning because we had an interloper from Tennessee there, and I didn't want to give away any possible grant money that we can go lay claim on. But do share that around the region if you would. That's it for real updates. We are dealing with some retirements in the Raleigh office. My understanding is Van Algebright's last day is going to be April 1st. He heads up the TIP unit. And we have 2 retirements coming up real soon in my branch. So there'll be a lot of shakeup, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, and I had said this at the TCC, the name Van Argebright probably doesn't mean a whole lot to folks outside of direct transportation work. Van has been an incredible resource for, I would assume, all of DOT, but for us especially. I got into a spreadsheet battle with Van years and years ago about how much kind of discretionary funds the MPO really had available. And Van and I had a back and forth, and I was saying, Van, I think you owe us $20 million. I said, I'm pretty sure here's a bunch of spreadsheets. We had this long back and forth, and Van came back and said, I found your spreadsheets are all wrong. You know, actually we owe you $25 million. And we worked with Van on getting those funds programmed. Those funds eventually went to a number of projects around the region, the French Broad River West Greenway, the purchase of buses, and eventually made more and more funding available so that a lot of the discretionary projects we have on the books right now, we have a very long list of those projects. A lot of that is thanks to Van. And besides that, he's just been a great guy to work with. But I'll save that for, I guess hopefully I'll see Van one last time. But I'll give him an email nonetheless. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate you. I think Suzette has fallen off the call as well. She has, Suzette, I will note, provides fantastic updates that are on the MPO website. And so please look through those. We have been sending out the notice of funding opportunities for some of the federal highways grants. One of them that came out this week was the Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant. So if you have a chance, please do look through that. But again, Suzette has been making a lot of great resources available, and trust me, in much shortened form than a lot of the other federal resources we get. So a big thanks to Suzette. I'm just complimenting everyone who's not here. That's why you gotta attend these meetings. Next is the subcommittee work groups report.
Sure, I won't go through all of these, but just to note, our subcommittees and work groups continue to be active. I do want to touch on what the prioritization subcommittee talked about in March. 2 big items. One of them is the local input point methodology for this round of prioritization. The subcommittee approved that. There's not a lot of big changes from the last round. There's very few changes. But that is at NCDOT for review, and that's coming back to this board for final approval in most likely our May meeting. Also, the draft memorandum of understanding, just as a reminder, that is not the most exciting administrative document, but the most important. We've been talking about potential, how the MOU needs to be formed for basically the next decade. And so we completed a draft that is out for comments and will be coming back to this board for review and approval. Just a spoiler alert, it is about as close to maintaining the status quo as can be. So the big change is Transylvania County. We are giving the boost, but really that's because of the urbanized area changes. So Transylvania County was a non-voting member. Now they will be a not member. Besides that, things like the veto power and the weighted voting, we have kept the same as they currently are. But again, that'll be coming back to the TCC and board for their consideration when we get comments back from FHWA and DOT. And then after the board approves, that's a document that we will be asking all of you to take to your local government councils for approval. Besides that, we have a number of work groups that continue to be active. One that is not listed here well, I'm going to skip down, and this is actually a new update in your board packet, the locally administered projects. These are the projects that are funded with the discretionary funds from the MPO. And so we have been convening a quarterly meeting with project managers on locally administered projects. Part of that is to talk about issues that have been coming up for the project managers. And also something we'll be doing more and more of is getting more frequent updates so that if there are projects that appear to be stuck, that's something that hopefully we can provide resources to or help get the assistance that that project may need. Again, a ton of projects moving forward with these funds. 3 pages of projects. Some of them are enormous. And so that's something we're trying to make sure that those funds are being used effectively is going to be more and more of a priority. This will be the last time I make this joke, Logan, I swear. But if we had to consider a mandatory celebration when these projects are done, my God, we might have to do it. To note, we do have projects that are wrapping up. We do have a member of Congress that is on committees that play a big role in funding, helping to recognize the wins that we are getting through these funding sources, to me, is something that we should be doing. And so please, 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 I know we have a slide in orientation. No project is universally loved, but let's celebrate those wins as we get them. That's just something to point out. The other thing, per the usual, we have the list of ongoing special studies, and we do have a lot of those. And so just to note, and for you all to keep track of everything that's going on, a lot of these studies, there will be updates to the TCC and board during their progress, especially the 25-year plan, as well as the socioeconomic projections. Don't underrate that study, folks. That study rules. That basically is a study that looks at how much growth we're expecting to come to the region, where that growth goes, and what does that growth do to our transportation network. There's this tiny, tiny little blurb in the I-26 connector about how the last time we did this study, it made effective changes to the design of that project. These projections feed into the region's travel demand model. I am so proud of that tiny little blurb. And so don't underrate this. Growth, I assume you guys talk about sometimes at your local governments. This study to me has been something that's been really great for looking at how transportation gets impacted by growth. And with that, that's all I've got for today. Perfect.
Any additional announcements, news, special events?
We do have Strive Week coming up in May. That's May 13th through 19th, formerly known as Strive Not to Drive. That's being managed by John Barsanti, our TDM coordinator for the region. This is an event that's been somewhat dormant for the last few years through the pandemic. And so this year there are a number of events that are kicking things back up. And so we'll be sending out more materials as they become available.
Any public comments? Hearing none, I'll adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, folks.